Just to wrap it up here, Evan, um, what are some of the most important things you've learned along the way that you'd like to share with our viewers and listeners?
Um, all right. So I would probably say, I have a series of rules that I like to live by when it comes to work. And I think they're very, very focusing. Uh, so the first rule is, never do anything you're being measured, never do anything you're not being measured against.
Hmm.
And part of that really is that we all love to be distracted,
Yeah.
right? So I was going down this one path and there were distractions. And
Yeah.
you wake up and you're like, yeah, because distraction is usually much easier to do.
Yeah.
It's much easier to do a distraction than it is to actually do your objective. And
Mm.
you wake up and you sort of feel short term, oh, I had this nice distraction. Feel so good. I solved someone else's problem for them. But at the end of the day here, I'm not being measured by that.
Mm.
So, if you think about your own self, I didn't hit any of my targets, but look at these nice distractions I had throughout the year. So the real focusing thing there is really focus yourself and your people on never do anything that you're not being measured against. And obviously I'm generalizing, but to prove a point, like get very, very focused on, what are you being measured against, et cetera.
Yeah.
And I think that really carries itself in other rules, right? Go into a meeting with one objective, not 19, and everyone always goes in with like, here are the 8 things we want to cover. Well, if you have 8 things that you want to cover, that means you have nothing to cover.
Mm.
What's the one thing that you want to accomplish in that meeting? Get very, very focused on that one thing. And it should be the thing you're being measured against.
Mm.
And then finally, I would say that, one of my big mantras at work is I want to be a client's first phone call.
Yep.
I don't care what industry, and I got this from my CEO at Verifone. I loved it. I want to be your first phone call. And they've actually heard me on the phone with like clients saying, was I your first phone call? Or I want to be your first phone call.
Okay.
Why? Because, when you're going to have a problem, I want you to call me first. I want you to come and treat me like that we're in confidence with each other. We're partners, right? You don't call your gas station first. Who cares where you fill up your tank? It doesn't make a difference. But a partner is someone you go, Jeff, I have a problem. Help me out with my problem. I want to bounce something off you. And if you're in a relationship where your client is calling you first, that's really that's the relationship you want to have. I'm your first phone call to solve your problem. And I don't care what industry you're in. It doesn't make a difference because we're all sort of commodities at some level or another because there are other people doing what we do. But if you are a client's first phone call, that now sets you apart from everyone else there. And you want to maintain that relationship. And by the way, ask the client, was I your first phone call? I want to be your first phone call. How do I make sure I'm your first phone call?
Yeah.
And you learn a lot in the payment industry where there's so many competitors in that space. Being a company's first phone call, and in the recruiting industry, the talent acquisition industry is $76 billion in the US. It's a giant, huge industry, huge. So what's the difference between, the big guys, Korn Ferry, Heidrick & Struggles, Robert Hat, these are all huge companies, Russell Reynolds, Manpower, Adecco, Hudson. They're all these giant companies is that someone's built a relationship with a client. And if you could be that person, if you can be that client first phone call, that's really going to set you apart.